Thank you for tuning in to another Saturday night edition of our starting lineup report here on Proline TV as we take a look at the Cookout 400 and the starting lineup as well as practice speeds. We're going to go over the updated odds. We have them as, I was going to say as usual, but as of 2026. And then we'll give you some updated picks as well as we'll go over the DFS strategy with DraftKings. Okay, so let's take a quick look at how it all panned out here earlier today in qualifying. And there were a couple of surprises to see Josh Berry third, Shane Van Gisbergen a very strong fifth. Other than that, no big surprises in the top 10. We must mention the fact, trend-wise, that if you take a look at next gen only, 3 of the 8 winners here at Martinsville started in the top 10. Just 3. They started first, fifth, and fifth. 2 of them happened, though, last year. One on the pole, that was William Byron. The other was fifth. And the pole win was actually, I believe, the first pole win. See if I've got that information here. Is the first pole win at the track since 2013. So Denny Hamlin, though, is going to try to go 2 for 2 with the pole wins, which would be quite interesting. Of course, Denny Hamlin is the defending champ of the race. He led a dominating 274 laps last year. In winning the race from the 5th position. Now he's going to be on the pole. So watch out for Denny Hamlin. We're going to also draw a line at the 20th spot. So let's go down here. And the reason we're going to do that is because during this stretch in next gen, the farthest back a driver has won is inside the top 20. So nobody has started outside the top 20 in next gen at Martinsville and won the race. All right. We also told you on Tuesday, manufacturers, they're pretty equal. And we're seeing that with the racing today. As far as some of the other drivers to keep an eye on outside the top 10, you see a really strong 11, 12, and 13 there with Bell, Blaney, Larson. Bubba Wallace is red hot to start the season. He's in an okay position. But then the further we go, the one that maybe sticks out here for sure is Chase Briscoe at 27th. Brad Keselowski had a good long run on practice, so he's somebody to still keep an eye on, even though he's starting 23rd. That's still disappointing as far as his qualifying run. And Kyle Busch continues to get off to a slow start so far, starting way back in 34th. Okay, so that's qualifying. Now we're going to head on over to practice and pop out the practice speeds. And, of course, ever since they made the change last year, the first couple of groups and this metric system nonsense that really confuses a lot of people, you do have to realize that for the most part, on average, if you get the second group, you're going to be a little bit slower, but that's just on average. So taking a look at the drivers who actually, normally would be in the second group, just so you know, the Group 1 drivers, like the notable drivers, included Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano. So they usually will be Group 2. They were in Group 1 today, so keep that in mind. Bubba was the fastest, as you can see, but again, Bubba was in Group 1. And who else was in there? Yeah, and so look, but even though that's the case, keep in mind Gibbs, Hamlin, Elliott, you see them there second, third, and fourth were all in Group 2. All right, so I don't really see a big disparity from both, to be honest with you. The only thing, but you do need to keep in mind that the drivers 5 through 9 that qualified, that's Shane, Van Gisbergen, Cindric, Hosevart, Reddick, and Logano. Take a look at their practice speeds. The fastest is Joey Logano there at 17. Okay. Then you got to go all the way down here. 21st is Tyler Reddick. Carson Hocevar is 28. Austin Cindric, 31st. Shane Van Gisbergen, 34th. All right. Now, Logano is the only one out of those 5 that wound up practicing in Group 1. All right. So you could take whatever you want out of it. I know there's a lot of people that could probably come up with their own feeling of what's better, what kind of advantage you have one way or another in either group at any track. But there you have it. All right. Now, moving back over, let me pop up the qualifying speeds, and I'm going to go over some interesting stats. Well, really, this isn't too interesting because of the fact that you didn't really find anything out other than, as we kind of felt on Tuesday, the manufacturers really don't have an edge over another. Toyota, Chevy, Ford, they've all been good here. Chevy's got, in the last 7 races, Chevy's got 3 wins. Toyota and Ford have 2 each. And we pretty much saw an equal competition today. In qualifying, Toyota had 3 of the top 8. Chevy had 3 of the top 7. Ford had 3 of the top 9. In practice, Toyota had the top 3. Chevy had 2 of the top 6. Ford had 3 of the top 8. So no manufacturer struggled today, and no manufacturer was dominant today. But Toyota was definitely the best. Okay. And it was the combination of not only being on the pole, okay, but also that top 3 in practice. Now, again, keeping in mind that Bubba Wallace was in Group 1, Group A, and he was the fastest, but still to make Toyota say, hey, doesn't matter, Group 2, we're really strong as well. Gibbs and Hamlin rounded out the top 3. All right. Now, let's take a look at the odds. And here they are. So we go by the top 10. Don't forget that. This is the top 10 in qualifying and the odds next to those drivers. So Denny Hamlin, I must say this. We talk about this all the time. Where is value regarding drivers that are the heavy favorites? Where do we draw that line? And I always talk about like 3-1 is pretty much, that's it. Anything under 3-1, no way. 3-1, more than half the time I won't take a driver. But at 3-1, sometimes I will. And this is the week that I will. I think Denny Hamlin looks just really strong. And so I think he's a really decent play at 3-1. You're actually getting plus 350 to tell you the truth from where I have it at Bovada. Of course, every sports book's going to be a little bit different. What's also interesting is if Denny Hamlin wins the race, then in the last 6 races, it would be 2 Hamlin, 2 Byron, 2 Blaney. How crazy would that be? So Hamlin was the fastest today. Not only was he first in qualifying, but 3rd in practice. Gibbs was the 2nd fastest, as you can see there. He's getting a pretty decent 14-1. Now, of course, we liked him as a really good sleeper earlier this week at 22-1. And you have to remember, he doesn't have a top 10 here, and he's never led a lap. But he's a completely different driver with this team. This has just been, everybody's getting along right now with the Ty Gibbs team. And you have to look at it that last year he finished top 15 both races, which was nice. Matter of fact, he had a solid car. He was even though he finished 13th in this race last year, he had a good run. So he deserved a better fate. His average starting position 10.7 in 7 races. Average finish 18.7. So there's a disconnect there. But again, now you feel more comfortable. Now you're on a hot streak. You've got 4 straight top 10s coming in. Actually, 4 straight of 6 or better. And you're starting 4th now. So you've now moved up from 10.7 to 4th. And you're 2nd fastest in practice. So I think Ty Gibbs is a definite play this week. And 14-1 is the reason. Or one of the reasons, of course. Also, the other drivers that you have to look at. Look, considering what happened last year, where both, even though the going into last year, it was only one driver winning next gen out of 6 that started in the top 10. Now, all of a sudden, we've got the last 2 in the top 5. So I actually think the way to go, and I'm going to give you some final analysis on picks a little bit later, but I think just going with the top 4 would be a very smart move because you don't have 2 heavy favorites. You have Hamlin at 3-1. You have Byron getting a very valued 8-1. I'm very surprised William Byron is 8-1. I think William Byron should be like 5-1 here. And you're getting 8-1. Josh Berry, you get good value there. He's 20-1. And we just talked about Gibbs at 14-1. You can play all 4 of these drivers and come out ahead if one of them wins. And I think that's the way to go. That would be my advice. That would be that's how I would do it. I'm not going to, we'll go over some other possibilities, of course, but all 4 of those drivers, by the way, in the top 4, all qualified. I mean, also practiced in the top 10. Okay. So, and there were only 5 out of the 10 who qualified in the top 10 that also practiced in the top 10. The only one outside of the top 4 was Chase Elliott. You see him at the bottom at 8-1. I'm really surprised that you're getting the same odds with Byron and Elliott. Now, we like Elliott, CJ and I. He's my second pick. That was my second pick on Tuesday. So I like Elliott. But at the same odds and knowing that Byron is also going to be starting second, remembering that the very last time that these drivers raced here, he dominated the race. He led 304 laps from the pole. Now he's just on the front row. Wow. Big deal, right? But I still like Elliott. I'm not saying I don't. I still like him because he had a really strong practice run. And then now you take a look at the rest of the top 10. Shane, look, it's definitely not what you want to see. The practice speed, that's pretty slow. I mean, he was just about as slow as any driver out there in practice. But we did mention, matter of fact, CJ brought it up. You got to remember, SVG does not have a lot of positive results on anything outside road courses. But this has been actually statistically his best track. He's raced here 3 times. He has 2 top 15s. And check this out. His average starting position is 28th. Now he's starting 5th. That 66-1. I mean, that's a must. Give me a couple bucks. You have to do it. Have to. I don't think he's going to win, but I think when you're starting 5th and you have that sort of history at this track, absolutely just throw a buck or 2 on him. I think Cindric is definitely a live long shot. No question about that. We've talked about him as a really good long shot all year. Last week, he came up with a really good finish, and that was the first that we wanted to see. Maybe that's going to be the first step in the right direction to get this team going. And his average starting position here is 19.6. So he'll be starting 6th, 30-1. It's down from 65-1, so you're losing half the money there, but still a big number. Hocevar, I don't really have a whole lot of hope for because we've seen Carson Hocevar qualify well before at a lot of tracks, especially because he was slow in practice. It doesn't have any big history here. Reddick, we've talked about him. This has just not been a good track for Tyler Reddick. It's one thing. Now, look, the good part is what Tyler Reddick is unlike when we talk about him not having value. Here you've got value, I guess. He's 28-1. But he's 28-1 for a reason. Come on, he's not going to be 28-1 with the start that he's gotten off to, and he's qualified in the top 10 if everybody knows it's just not a good track for him. But as I said last week, if you've already taken Tyler Reddick this year several times and he keeps cashing checks for you, just keep betting him. Joey Logano is probably just going to be a top 10 driver. That's why 12-1 I think is okay. I don't really expect anything to tell you the truth out of him regarding a win. He only has 1 win in 34 races here, but he does have 13 straight top 10s and an average of 6.0 in his last 13 races. So he's very consistent here, and I just expect more consistency out of him. But I do not expect a win. And then you got Elliott. And again, the reason why he was my second pick, or one of the reasons, you take a look at his history here. He's only won once. I get that, but he's led over 1,000 laps. Almost half of his results have been in the top 5. He's got 7 top 10s in 8 next-gen races with 4 top 5s and a runner-up. And this is more important, which also makes him a pretty decent fantasy play. He has led 42 or more laps in 6 of 8 next-gen races. He was also 5th at New Hampshire last year, and New Hampshire is the most similar track to Martinsville. All right, so that's the top 10. Now let's take a look at the top contenders. Not a big list this week, so we'll start with those top 3 there, Bell, Blaney, and Larson. And yeah, Bell, there's just too many other options this week than to go with Christopher Bell. Bell has got to win 2022. He does. He was actually 2nd in this race last year from the pole, so that's good. He had a solid car that day. Look, I think he's a solid play, but the practice speed wasn't that fast. I kind of put him in the same boat as Logano. I would take Logano over Bell. Blaney, on the other hand, look at that. He's 4-1. He's the second choice. And he's almost a favorite. And yet his practice speed and his qualifying speed were not in the top 10. And his average starting position, though, get this, is 11.9 coming in here. So I think that's not moving. Maybe it'll be 12.0 when we talk about this race in the fall. So he's right where he usually is, and I'm sure that's a reason why they're not going to budge from that 4-1 number, because he was the favorite coming in. He also has the win at New Hampshire in the fall, and he's been 11th or better in the last 14 races with 10 top 5s, 3 runner-ups, and 2 wins. He has been fantastic here. He was 11th in this race last year. 2nd, he almost won the race in the fall here. He led 177 laps. And last year, he started 32nd and 31st and still finished 11th and 2nd. So Blaney normally, his average finish is 8.2. So he normally does better on Sunday than he does on Saturday. But asking him to win the race at 4-1 when I can take Denny Hamlin at plus 350, I mean, I'm just going to go with Denny Hamlin as much as I love my boy Blaney. And he was my top pick. Now, CJ's top pick was Hamlin. My top pick was Blaney. So we weren't inventing the moon here, but I'd have to go with Hamlin at this point in time right now. And then some of these others, I mean, Kyle Larson, if you take a look at, he was one of the co-favorites along with Denny and with Blaney on Tuesday. But he only has 1 win here in 22 starts. He hasn't led more than 367 laps here, but he's been 6th or better in 7 straight races with 2 runner-ups and a win. He's got a 3.4 average in those last 7 races. 5th in both races last year, but maybe this is more important. He started 4th and 3rd in those races and didn't lead a lap. Considering he's starting 13th and practiced 16th, I think you got better options. Bubba Wallace, meanwhile, here's another really good long shot play. His odds really didn't drop a whole lot from the beginning of the week. And if you look at it, overall, in the next gen, 50% of the time he's been in the top 10, 2 top 5s, 10.8 average. All right. And that's as good as any track in the Cup Series Wallace, result-wise, has been able to register. And in this particular race, the spring race at Martinsville, in the last 3 years, he's finished 3rd, 4th, and 9th. Now he's starting 15th. So fantasy-wise, I think you have to play him, because I would expect with the 15th starting position, he was fastest overall in practice. That's a great sign that he's going to move up. So you're going to get laps from Bubba. Maybe he'll even steal some actual leading laps as well. And so I think Wallace is an excellent fantasy play and a long shot play. And then the other 2 fantasy plays are right next to him, Preece and Chastain. Okay, Preece is 28-1, as you can see. Chastain also big 40-1. But more importantly, check these guys out as far as a DFS pick. Preece in his last 6 races here, has 3 top 10s, and he's led 135 laps. It all came from the same race. In this race, a couple years ago, he started 15th in that race. Excuse me, he started from the pole in that race and finished 15th. Last year, both top 10s, and he started 21st and 18th. And he's gained 33 spots in the last 4 races at this track. That's really good fantasy value. Ross Chastain, I think, is even better. In the next gen, he's got 5 top 10s out of 8, 3 top 5s. He's got an average start of 18.3. Well, where's he starting? 18th. He's got an average finish of 8.5. He's gained 79 spots in next gen. That is excellent fantasy value. Brad Keselowski, meanwhile, like I said, he had a good long run in practice. I still expected him to be a little bit faster in qualifying, but you know what? I think this is better for fantasy because he is trending really well in the series overall. He's got back-to-back top 10s, runner-up last week. Look, in next gen overall with Roush, he has a 23.6 average. That's not good. But in this race, a couple years ago, he started 18th and he led 170 laps, finished 9th. He's got a couple of wins here. It's a while back, of course, with Penske. But overall, I think he's a good sleeper and definitely, and he had a really good week last week. I think he had the fastest car. But everything's been working out with Reddick and that team, and they timed it better as far as pit stops, won the race late. Keselowski, though, if he can keep this up, he's going to be a really good play on Sunday. So excellent DFS choice as well. And not much else there, but most of I think what you see from the contenders in my mind are really good fantasy plays. Wallace, Preece, Chastain, and Keselowski. So let's take a look at that. And this is my lineup. So look, I have to go with Hamlin, and I think what I would really advise you to do this particular week is I think you have to take at least 2 drivers out of the top 4. However way you want to do it. You could take 2 favorites, Hamlin or Byron at 10,000. So you're gaining an extra 1,000 if you go Byron. And then with the long shots, you go Gibbs at 8,500, or you save 1,000 with Berry. So if you want to switch it and go Berry and Byron, you can do that, and you can have an extra couple of thousand. And as you can see here, I went with Wallace and Keselowski and Chastain. Now, the only one I didn't go is Preece. But the reason I didn't do that is because I was able to go and spend a little bit more. And the reason I was able to is because by taking Cindric, I saved $1,200. And in my mind, the only difference is I wouldn't take Cindric if I didn't think he had a chance to win the race or finish in the top 5. And we've talked about him all year, so it's not coming from left field. Like I said, he finished strong last week, and maybe that's a sign that he could do even better this week. And remember, he's driving Penske. We know what Blaney can do here, and I just told you what Logano could do here. So if Cindric can finally, sort of like what's going on with Gibbs, if Cindric can finally find the right mixture, the right team, he has more than enough behind him with Penske to do really special things this year. That's the reason why I took him, as I said the other day, at 100 to 1 to win the championship. I threw a few bucks on him. Why not? Why wouldn't I? The only reason I haven't yet done that with, say, Gibbs or Wallace and a couple others is because they're half the money. I mean, they're 40 to 1 range, 50 to 1. But I don't think those are going to drop considerably. So those are even drivers that I'm thinking about taking real soon too. Because with Gibbs, it's the same thing. Even though he's never won a race yet, the fact is how do we know? We know he has the backing. The only thing with Gibbs and Cindric to win a championship is can they as individuals, when it gets down to it by the end of the year with this new system, can they on a week in, week out basis, not that they have to, of course, be perfect like the old system, but when it really matters, can they come up with big wins and big performances, and most importantly, not do anything stupid? Because more than likely, you would think that they need to get a little bit experience. But hey, we're talking long shots, so we don't have to put up a lot of money to invest in long shots, just in case something crazy happens and they actually are able to pull something crazy off. Okay, so as far as the rest, like I said, if you're looking for some really good bargains back here, I would look at Shane Van Gisbergen. The only reason that there's a couple of reasons that I didn't even take him, though. He's starting 5th, and so I'm not going to get much position change if he does wind up finishing, say, in the top 10. Or let's say he does finish top 10. He might finish 6 to 10, and now I'm going negative. Plus, I don't know if he can lead any laps here, especially looking at the practice speeds. And so I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't really know if that's a good fantasy play, but if I need to save money, then hey, he's $6,000. You can save there. And then because look, I got to go all the way to Josh Berry at $1,500 more before I get the next bargain that I would look at that I don't already have. Now, Berry doesn't have like a big history here, but you do have to remember, and he's off to a terrible start, 32nd in points. But you have to remember his average starting position here is 14.8. So that's a great sign. And he did finish 2nd at New Hampshire last fall. So that might have been a perfect indicator that they found something on these specific tracks here, New Hampshire and Martinsville. So maybe the 3rd in qualifying and the 7th in practice wasn't a fluke. And then you could see the rest. Elliott, again, the only reason I would take Elliott over Byron at this point is to save $300. But look, I don't think there's a big difference between the two, but you do have to keep in mind. I mean, William Byron has won 3 races here. And they've been relatively recent compared to Chase. When was Chase's win? When did Chase win here? 2020. Pre-next gen. Okay. So there you go. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, anything at all regarding the race. I hope we've given you as much information as we can, so you can go out there and make some money, throw a few bucks on the drivers, and also hit here on fantasy if you play wherever you play, including, of course, here over at DraftKings. So we're going to be off next week, of course. Everybody's off. So we're off next week. And then we'll be back for Bristol. And we're going to look, Martinsville has not gone really well recently, but they've got the new power package. So and what I mean by that, of course, is we've seen blowouts. And we've had the same thing happen at Bristol lately. So hopefully this is an indication here at Martinsville before we go to Bristol, that if we see something different on Sunday where it's more exciting, there's a little bit more back and forth, it's not so dominant, then that bodes better for Bristol. Oh, and another reason maybe to like Hamlin is, don't forget, and again, this is the reason CJ picked him. Denny Hamlin was the short track king last year in Cup, and now he's already picked up where he left off last year. So there you go. All right, that'll do it. Best of luck to everybody tomorrow, and enjoy the week off. Again, if you have any questions, just let us know in the comment section, anything at all. And we'll catch you on the other side. We'll talk to you Bristol week, unless, of course, something crazy happens in the sport. We'll be off until a week from Tuesday. See everybody then.